You picked a quiet place to ask questions. Good. Quiet places tell the truth. This cave sits behind a curtain of water somewhere in Selenoyarsk. The Soviets think of it as an anonymous pocket of stone on a bad map. For me, it's a memory palace made of sweat and gun oil. I holed up here once with a busted rib, a half-empty canteen, and a belly full of snake. Tonight the coals are low, the smoke is thin, and the shadows don't ask for passwords. That's rare. So if you want the story, you'll get it. But you won't like the taste. I killed my teacher. That's what you came to hear, right? It's also the truth that rewired me from a soldier into something else. People call me a lot of names. Operative, hero, traitor, legend. The one that stuck after that day was Big Boss. But before the salute, before the medals and empty words, I was just John. Codename Naked Snake. Stripped down to skill, muscle memory, and a mission stitched with lies. You know what matters most to a soldier in the field? It's not the rifle or the rations, it's certainty. Certainty keeps your hands steady when the brush rustles and a Spetsnaz pointman stops breathing 20 feet away. Certainty lets you say copy to a voice on the other end of a codec and mean it. Certainty told me that my mentor had betrayed our country. And certainty is how you miss every trap they set for you, right up until you pull the trigger on the one person who taught you how to aim. The jungle here is a cathedral that doesn't care about prayers. You learn to listen to what it's saying anyway. Mud that swallows boot prints, vines that grip your kit, mosquitoes that prefer American blood. My camouflage index was never perfect, but I could make the wind doubt itself. I ate what crawled, stitched what tore, and trusted the map folded in my head more than any piece of paper. That first drop into the tree line. They called it the virtuous mission. Virtue didn't make it past the opening act. I was there to pull a scientist named Sokolov out of GRU hands. He was the kind of man wars orbit around, soft hands, brilliant eyes, chained to a monster he'd built to keep himself alive. The Shagohod. Imagine a nuclear threat with treads. That's what we were fighting, at least according to the brief. But the real war was about something no one put on a blackboard. Who owns loyalty, and what it costs to pay for it. I hit the ground, took a breath, and found the rhythm. Crawl, observe, commit. I chewed a ration, checked the blade's edge, and moved like the world was asleep. Then the world woke up as a woman's voice came back online in my ear and rearranged the cells in my body. The boss. 10 years under her, and I still didn't know how to carry the weight of her footsteps. She taught me everything. CQC that felt like conversation, not violence. How to move through a space without asking it for permission. When to pull a trigger and when to holster a loaded truth. We'd been to the edge together more times than I can count, and she had this way of handing you a line when you didn't know you were drowning. Then, on that mission, she held a different rope, the one tied to Volgan's wrist. She defected. She broke my arm like it was part of the lesson plan, and she walked away with the Cobras while I lay in the dirt tasting copper and new orders. They pulled me out, patched me up, swapped my shock for a cold new directive. Go back in, stop Volgan, destroy the Shagohod and kill the boss. My own mentor, my compass. Delete her. If I hesitated, the world burned. That's how they framed it. Duty leaves no space for questions when the people above you answer them for you. So I went back to the jungle. The air had teeth. GRU had ears. Every snake in the grass had my name on its tongue, some of them literal. I learned the Cobra unit by scent and shape. Terror carved into specialties like they'd been born from predicates. The pain came first, hornets built into armor and anger. The fear moved like the forest owed him rent. The end, an old man rooted in patience, married to the wind with a Mosin Nagant that could write your epitaph in chlorophyll. The fury burned everything between us and the stars. The sorrow. He didn't belong to the living at all. Each one was a parable about what war does when you let it choose your personality for you. Ocelot was woven through all of it, a cat with guns and a taste for theater. Young then, too much swagger on the draw, hands that wanted to be shown something. I should have put him down. Instead, I corrected his grip. It's a strange thing to sharpen the fangs of your enemy. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was a prophecy I didn't want to read. He thanked me later with a bullet that took my eye, not on purpose. Volgan's idea of fun made a mess of that room, and I blinked at red and white, and the sudden fact that depth perception is a luxury. They branded me in that place, not with iron, with knowledge. Back then I thought the truth was a wound that would scab over if I kept moving. I was wrong. The truth bleeds slow. EVA found me between ambushes and explanations. She moved like a rumor that wanted proof, said she was with us. Maybe she was, for a while. She knew how to ride, how to shoot, and how to look through me like she could measure my pain by the gram. She brought me a pistol that fit my hand like it had been waiting there all along. She cooked, she talked, she kissed. In a world made of double binds, she offered something single for one night. The morning took it back, like mornings do. People think a soldier's romance is bullets and bravado. It's calories, mostly. Calorie mate, to be exact. Lemon flavor can taste like home if you let it. I rationed those squares like prayer beads. The jungle gives you snakes and frogs and mushrooms that gamble with your heartbeat. You learn fast what your stomach's made of. You learn faster when it's empty. They called the next phase Operation Snake Eater. Cute name. The reality was slow and poisonous. The boss's voice in my ear was gone. In her place came the major's clipped encouragement. Paramedics' encyclopedic bedtime stories about movie monsters and mealworms. And Sigint's clean genius about hardware that couldn't stop mud. They kept me human. You need that when your shadow starts to look like a stranger with bad intentions. The end taught me patience in a language older than bullets. He could chew sunlight and call it breakfast. We spent hours, days, listening to each other breathe across distances that would have made a priest doubt confession. I hunted him, he hunted me, and the jungle kept score with pollen. When I finally outlasted him, I thought I'd learned what it meant to earn a victory. Then the sorrow took me wading through a river of my own decisions. Every face I'd put down waited there, with water in their mouths and questions in their eyes. I crossed anyway. There are no clean uniforms on that bank. Grozny Grad was the heart of the storm, a fortress with metal bones where a madman kept his toy. Volgan was more than a colonel. He was a thesis about power, the kind of man who mistook lightning for permission. He hurt because he could, and he wanted the world to know the taste of it. I wore another man's face to get close. That mask fit too well. It's hard to remember your own name when the halls echo with somebody else's boots. When it broke, when the torture started, when Ocelot played games with fate and my eye paid the bill, when the boss stood there between what was left of me and what I still had to do, I understood something tiny and enormous. She wasn't my enemy. She was my assignment. Those two words are cousins you shouldn't introduce at family gatherings. After the escape and the chase, the Shagohod's roar like a bad prophecy, the runway turning into a shooting gallery, EVA on a bike threading a needle through death, we ran out of road. The field opened up in front of us like a mercy. White flowers, a sky with room for answers. She was waiting. She wore the Patriot like a period at the end of a sentence that had taken her whole life to write. She moved the way snow falls when it doesn't have to impress anyone. We spoke. Not much. The important conversations had already happened in muscle memory. We fought. CQC isn't about anger, it's about intimacy. It's a conversation between bones. She knew every word I knew, and 3 I hadn't learned yet. We traded throws and locks in a vocabulary of breath. The white petals rose and fell around us like tides. When I finally had her on the ground, the pistol in my hand felt heavier than the planet. She looked at me with all the years between us. There was no betrayal in it, only a request. I pulled the trigger. The petals turned red because the world wanted a metaphor. I wanted to be sick. Instead, I finished the mission. We left the country in a stolen plane with a promise of sunshine and nowhere to land. We crashed. We survived. We didn't sleep much. And in the morning, she was gone. She left me a tape that edited my heart with a razor blade. It said the part you never put in official history. The boss had been ordered to defect. She had been ordered to die. She had been told to become a villain so her country could pretend it hadn't played with matches in a dynamite factory. She obeyed. Not because she was weak, but because her will was stronger than the wrath of small men. The medal ceremony felt like a funeral for the wrong person. Applause in that room sounded like distant artillery, impersonal and late. They pinned a star on me and a title in my file. Big Boss. I walked out before the champagne could forget my name. I bought flowers, white. I went to a grave that didn't have her on it. I saluted until my arm shook. And somewhere between the first and last tear, loyalty died and duty changed its face. They taught us that mission comes first. They didn't say what happens when the mission is to bury the truth. I learned the difference between serving people and serving power. That difference is everything. Now you want to hear about the little things. The stories fans whisper like passwords while they wait for their rations to heat. Fine. I find comfort in simple gear. A good knife, sharp enough to shave with, but patient enough to pry out a bullet. A .45 that speaks without stuttering. Camouflage that lies well. A cardboard box that isn't a joke. It's a philosophy. People underestimate cover when it looks like nothing. I never do. The world's loudest questions sometimes need the quietest answers. I remember paramedic going on about old monster reels while I stitched a cracked forearm with fishing line. I remember Sigint telling me why the silent pistol wasn't truly silent and why that didn't matter under rain. I remember Major Zero's voice, steady as a metronome, counting me back from edges he didn't know he'd built. I remember laughing once, honestly laughing, because a frog jumped into my boot and refused to negotiate. The human stuff matters. Without it, you become an equation someone can solve with ordnance. Ocelot. He kept showing up like a bad habit you begrudgingly come to respect. Under the theatrics was a mind that loved the game and a hunger for being seen by someone who could keep up. We traded lessons without saying so. He shot out my eye, and it bound us in a way I wouldn't have chosen. Complicated is an understatement. Some men are mirrors you avoid until the day you have to shave. As for EVA, some truths are gifts, even when they don't come wrapped the way you hoped. She saved my life. She also left. Both can be true. War teaches you to hold opposites in the same hand without crushing either. You asked for the hook. You got it. You asked for the story. You're swimming in it. But if you're smart, you'll wring it out and keep only what matters. What matters is this. Obedience without vision is how good people become tools. I believed in flags. I still believe in people. The boss taught me how to fight. In dying the way she did, she taught me how to choose. Not the choices they put on the table, country or treason, victory or death, but the ones they keep off the menu. Protect the soldiers first. Protect the kid who has to carry a rifle because someone else wants to carry a ledger. Protect the woman who does her duty so well they make her the mask for their sin. Some call that redemption. I call it clarity. The game world I was born into ran on acronyms and missing pages. The Fox unit, the CIA's leash, GRU's teeth, the philosopher's legacy of capital pretending to be conscience. You hear legacy, and you think of family. All I saw was a dead hand reaching for the living with a wallet. The Shagohod was a weapon. The legacy was worse. It could aim entire governments. I used to talk about patriotism like it was a mountain you climb and plant a flag on. Now I know it's a path you walk with people you'd bleed for, and the flag follows if it can keep up. Some nights, like tonight, the path leads you into a cave with a small fire and a listener who wants to know why a man stops saluting. The answer isn't complicated. It's just heavy. You might think I hate the boss for what she made me do. I don't. I loved her beyond the words they let men like me use. Not romance, not family, something older. She was the spine in my back. They broke it by making me the hammer. And even then, she shielded me with the last thing she had, her own reputation. The world gets the villain it deserves when it asks too little of its heroes. I keep a bandana she left me. Ties easy, keeps sweat out of your eyes. Reminds you that cloth is just cloth until you decide what it stands for. Like names. Naked Snake was a code name stripped to utility. Big Boss was a title stapled to a wound. John is what I hear when the fire's low and I try to sleep without dreams. You don't get to choose what they call you. You do get to choose what you answer to. If you want practical lessons, fine. Don't confuse training with truth. Training keeps you alive. Truth keeps you human. Eat what the land gives you, but don't make a religion out of it. Your knife is a surgeon, not an artist. A suppressed shot still sings to anyone listening close. Never break a promise to yourself just to keep one to a man who'll forget your first name by Monday. And when the moment comes that demands an answer you can't live with, remember there's a third option. Step out of the script. I used to think reality was a set of orders printed in the right font. Then I shot my mentor in a field of white flowers because the paperwork said that's what a hero does. The medal they gave me afterward shines best in the dark, like a warning. There's a story people tell about me standing in the rain at a grave with no name, saluting so hard it hurt. That one's true. What they don't see is what happened after the salute. I dropped my hand. I breathed. I listened. The world makes a different sound when you stop listening for applause. You wanted me to ground this around a campfire that makes sense. This cave saved my life once. I burned leeches here with a cigar and counted my heartbeats until they sounded like a clock I could trust. I ate a snake and decided to become the man who would keep other men from eating their mentors for breakfast in the name of a blank check. I made promises to someone no one else will honor. That's what this little ring of heat means to me. A place to build a decision big enough to walk out with. In the jungle, vision is a currency. Night goggles, thermal, sonar, you learn them all. But the best vision isn't in your kit. It's the one that sees through the mission to the world afterward. When you look that far, some orders simplify themselves into the silence you keep. That silence can be a shield or a prison. You decide which. The boss had a will. People reduce it to slogans, to words they can print on pamphlets and parade banners. But her will wasn't about the state or its myths. It was about human beings living without being pinned like insects by men with ledgers. She obeyed a terrible command because she thought the sacrifice would buy time for sanity to grow. It didn't. Not then. Maybe it will someday. Maybe that's why I keep talking to fires and strangers. Because stories are the only currency that spends in both directions. Back to the dead and forward to the ones who haven't learned their first code word yet. You want to know what I regret? Not the scars, not the eye, not even the shot. I did what she asked. I regret the seconds I spent believing the people who'd never bleed for me. I regret letting them measure my worth in missions completed instead of lives shepherded. But regrets are just footprints in wet dirt. The sun will eat them if you keep walking. There are men out there still building shagahads with new paint. There are young soldiers who think the Kodak will always tell the truth. There are fields waiting for flowers they'll never get. So I do what I can. I teach CQC to people who think fighting is about rage. I teach them it's about control, about feeling the other person's center and choosing to spare it when you can. I teach them how to take a breath before they decide whether the thing in front of them is an enemy or a mirror. Sometimes I think about the cardboard box. People laugh. Let them. Hiding in plain sight is how you survive the parts of the world that want spectacle more than substance. A box is a promise you make to yourself that you'll live to choose when to come out. Stealth isn't cowardice, it's stewardship of the only life you actually get to spend. You've been listening a long time. That means you're either patient or lost. Either way, here's the part you can carry without dropping anything else. Loyalty is a blade with two edges. Point one toward the people beside you. Keep the other away from your own throat. Question missions that ask you to trade human beings for ideas. Learn the terrain of the land and of your own mind. When the jungle starts to speak your name, answer in a whisper. And when you find yourself in a field of white flowers with a choice no one would envy, choose in a way you can stand to remember. I'm not a hero, never was. I'm a man who did his job until the job didn't mean what I was told it meant. Then I kept doing a different job, protecting the ones who have to wear the weight. They'll call that treason. That's fine. Names are cheap, lives aren't. If you came here for absolution, you won't find it. If you came here for a legend, you're late. What I can give you is a direction. North is the memory of a teacher who chose her country over her name. South is a runway lit by the fuse of a machine that should never have been built. West is a grave with no inscription. East is a jungle that eats certainty and leaves you with something better if you chew long enough. As for me, I'll take the path that keeps the rookies breathing and the wolves confused. I'll move like wind through tall grass and save my bullets for the problems that won't listen. I'll keep one hand open for anyone who wants to climb out of the script. And I'll keep the other steady enough to write endings for the ones who won't. The fire's going out. Good. Dawn's a better witness than flame. If you've got more questions, ask them while we walk. The jungle's awake now, and it doesn't like to be kept waiting. One last thing. If you ever find yourself saluting in the rain at a grave with no name, don't look for forgiveness in the marble. Look for it in the way you live afterward. That's where the boss is, not beneath the stone, but inside the choice. Let's move.